Yeah, we're not doctors or giving any medical advice. This show is intended for educational purposes only, and you should talk to your doctor about any medical issues. Now, let's get at it.
Welcome to Chat the Fat, where nutrition authors Nissa Gron and TC Hale are going to break down common low-carb mistakes. Let's chat all things low-carb, keto, digestion, and more so you can maximize your results.
Hello, good people, and welcome back to Chat the Fat. This is episode 88, sort of. I'm here with Nissa Gron, but we're also going to have other people.
We are going to welcome one of our Keto Decoded members, Sasha, on the podcast today.
That's fun. I don't even know how to act. Should I wear something, or should I just sit in the corner and not talk and be on my best behavior? I don't even know what to do.
Well, she has a British accent, so maybe wear something fancy.
Okay. All right. I'll get my top hat. I'm sure I have a top hat. Why wouldn't I have a top hat? That just seems silly.
Exactly. Yes, so we are interviewing Sasha today because during the last keto challenge, we had some raffle prizes when you join the challenge. And if you are a Keto Decoded member, you are automatically entered in for those prizes. So Sasha won our Keto Decoded hot seat. So basically, we just are going to take a look at all of her information and tell her what she specifically can do to get better results.
Yeah, it's easy. So we just go through all of her stuff and then we say, yeah, never do that again. And then she weeps a little bit and then she fixes the problem. It's going to work out awesome.
It will. And it's great because it's not just recycled information that might work for some people, but it's information specifically geared towards her. So hopefully this will step up her progress a bunch in time for the next keto challenge, which is coming. It's only a few weeks away, starting January 18th.
Coming. It's going to be fun. I can't believe how many people are going to play with this. It's going to be a good time. We had too many people last time, so this time will be double too many people, but it makes it fun. So we're going to like it.
It will be fun. And we can have even more people. If you want to sign up right now, you can sign up for the keto challenge a little early. You can also get a half price spot for your friend to let them challenge along with you. And you can get that at eatingfatisthenew skinny.com/challenge gift. So you would be getting a spot for yourself and giving a gift as a half price spot for a friend. But we won't tell them. We'll just pretend like you paid full price and it's a really good gift.
Right. And plus you can also do the thing where you don't want to be like, here, you need this keto challenge really bad. And instead you can be like, look, I want to do this keto challenge and I want you to do it with me. So I got you one for free. Now let's go do it.
It's fun. And if you like what you hear today, you could even be in the hot seat next time when you jump in the challenge.
Okay, let's do it then. I'm excited about this. Let's jump into our call with Sasha. Hello, I think we're live. We are live in the group, and Sasha, at my house, it's 30 o'clock. So it only we're here with Sasha, and Sasha, where are you? Where in the world are you?
I'm in Witney, about 12 miles west of Oxford in the UK.
So it only took Nissa and I about 14 hours to figure out what time it was going to be for each of us, so that we could all be humans together
Well, I
at the
think
same.
I'm 5 hours ahead of one of you and 8 hours ahead of the other.
Right, so
it gets confusing with mountain time because in Arizona we don't change time, so it's wrong.
right. So Nissa and I will get in a groove and then they'll have daylight savings time and we'll be completely messed up again. And then we think we get it figured out. And then one of our kids will talk to us and we'll forget exactly where we were and who we are.
Yes.
But that's okay because it's all about Sasha today. It's not about the time or the kids until Nissa's kid comes running in the room. Joey's going to come running in at some point, right?
Yes, he's supposed to be in school, but he's playing hooky today. So
Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to put somebody on a hot seat and we're going to talk about where they are and what's going on with them and what kind of improvements that they can make. And, one of the things that we liked about Sasha is that she's already fixed some pretty good issues that were going on before. And now it just seems like there just needs to be a little bit of tweaking going on so that you can see that weight loss part. Right, Sasha?
Yes. And inch loss.
When we talked a couple of weeks ago, since the last challenge that we had, you hadn't had a whole lot of loss since then. Is that still where you are today?
Yes, it just seems painfully slow. And in the 5 weeks since, or over 5 weeks since the challenge ended, I have lost half an inch on my waist. And
Okay.
it just seems very, very slow. And in the past, of course, I used to lose weight. I mean, I yo-yo dieted for years, but I did used to lose weight more easily. And I suppose I've got older and it's more difficult.
Right. And, a lot of times we like to tell people, don't be so discouraged. You've lost half an inch, you've lost an inch, that's like, that can be 5 pounds of fat, all those kind of things. We talk a lot about that in our group and courses and in the challenges. But after it's been, a couple of months to where you've only lost half an inch, that's when it said, okay, now we want to go in and we want to tweak some things. There
Mm.
is a time for patience and to kind of remove that hope that I was going to lose 15 pounds by Thursday. A lot of people had that hope, and we like to get people away from that. But once you're away from that and you've lost and you hit a stall, if it goes 5 or 6 weeks, then okay, now it's time to really look at what's going on and make some tweaks. So hopefully we can find some tweaks that you won't yell at us about today, that you'll be like, okay, I'll do that. And you won't throw it back at us.
Okay.
So Nissa, how do you want to roll this? Why don't you do something? I don't know. We've never done this before, so let's just see how it goes.
Well, let's start with some of the problems, and then I guess we can get into her current routine and see what we can change about that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So some of the problems that Sasha listed, like you just talked about, she said, I'm only losing on average zero point 0.6 pounds per week. Since the end of the challenge, which we're about a month out from, or 4.5 weeks ago, she's only down 3 pounds. Sasha said she started low carb on August 3rd, and she lost 2 pounds in the first week and then nothing for the next 6 weeks. She began with the Beet Flow Flush on September 22nd, followed up by the other supplements, including 2 weeks of D-limonene on alternate days. It was only once that she started the supplements that she actually began to lose weight, but it was a slow process. She said prior to starting Beet Flow, she had chronic diarrhea with approximately 8 bowel movements per day and very pale stools. Then this changed to constipation, only going once or twice a week. So she started taking magnesium malate and ascorbic acid at breakfast and lunch. The situation now is that she's still only having a substantial bowel movement every 3 days or so, with just minor movements in between. The stools are okay in consistency and not hard pellets anymore.
So 8 times a day is a lot of times to go to the bathroom, Sasha. You
It
must
was,
have
and
been.
that would all be within an hour and a half in the morning.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
Mostly odd little bits in the day, but mostly it was within a time frame.
Right. Well, you were spending a lot of money on toilet paper at a time when toilet paper was not plentiful over here. I don't know how you guys did on toilet paper. If
Well, we
everybody
have a
freaked out.
Costco over here, the same as you do, so I'd already stocked up.
Okay, that's good. You planned ahead. I don't want you to have to deal with that in a pandemic when toilet paper is rare. But fixing that is a really huge deal. And the fact that you're now leaning more towards constipation, we'll kind of talk about this a little bit, but it really makes sense for a weight loss stall. And a lot of people don't get this at all. They can be chronically constipated for years and decades to where they'll only go once or every week or even longer than that. And they'll say, well, I don't understand why I can't lose weight. And that's really a big issue because we poop to get rid of waste. And so if we're not doing that, the waste, it doesn't just, vanish or disintegrate or we don't use it up. It kind of can get refiltered back into the system, reabsorbed into the system. And then the body's like, gonna filter, I got to filter this junk out all over again so it can slow down all that liver activity. But when the body gets a little bit overwhelmed with all of that, there are certain types of toxins and certain type of waste that the body can say, hey, I can take this and I can just shove it in a fat cell and it will make that toxin inert so that it doesn't cause any trouble to the body. So it will do that whenever it can. So when we're constipated, it can literally be a way that the body says, oh, don't worry about it. I got this. I'll just shove it in a fat cell. And meanwhile, you're like, no, I don't want you to do that. But the body's just looking at survival, because if those toxins stayed in the bloodstream, we'd be dead. So the body doesn't want us to do that. So it does whatever it can to kind of help out. So what we really want to do as a priority for you is to fix the constipation.
It has
And
improved since I started taking the malate and the ascorbic acid.
mhm,
So it is getting a little bit better. It's not like it was 5, 6 weeks ago. It has
right.
improved a bit.
So that's good that you're going in the right direction, and you might not really see the results until that has improved. But we're going to talk about some other tweaks, anyways, that you might want to try that could
Okay.
help out. But it sounds very strongly like your bile was not flowing well at all with your 8 times a day loose stools
Yeah.
and a very pale stool color. That says, "Hi, I don't have any bile flow." So
Mm.
when that's the case and you fix that problem, now the bile is flowing and the bile is very alkaline. But it sounds like the situation was likely that you had a little bit of stomach acid, but no bile flow. So that creates that imbalance where the stool would be too hot, right? Because
Yeah.
the stomach acid is leaving the stomach and then it's not getting neutralized by bile. So then the body wants to get rid of this and it gets rid of it 8 times in a row all of a sudden. So that can be a situation that happens. So when you fix the bile flow, now it corrects that, but now it created an imbalance in the other direction because if the stool is not acidic enough, now the alkaline bile is really going to slow it down and it's going to contribute to the constipation. We don't know if that's the only thing contributing to your constipation. It could also be a little bit of an anabolic imbalance as well. Since the magnesium is helping, we know that that's at least a factor. But
Yeah.
when we look at the fact that you're taking 5-HCl per meal plus ascorbic acid, and you did D-limonene for a couple of weeks, the
Yeah.
fact that you're still a little bit constipated, it kind of signifies that there could be a bacterial overgrowth, maybe in the stomach, but also maybe in the small intestine, like further down the line. D-limonene is really good at wiping out the bacteria in the stomach, and a lot of times the waste from that bacteria is very alkaline. So you could be taking 5-HCl, but since all the bacteria are pooping it up real nice, that alkaline waste can neutralize the HCl you're using. So the 5-HCl might only be as effective as one or two or maybe none.
So should I
Does that
do
make sense?
the D-limonene again? I did
You
it
know,
at the start for alternate days for 2 weeks or
mhm.
10 days or whatever.
And did you
Should I do
notice
it?
anything change at all? Any kind of bloating change or anything?
No, no.
Okay, so you could do it again. It's not going to be a bad thing since we know you're not dealing with a catabolic imbalance. It can be pro-catabolic. That's why we like people to do it every other day. But
Right.
if somebody has a more aggressive infection in the stomach, like H. pylori or others that are similar to that, D-limonene won't be enough to wipe that out. You'll have to use
Okay.
more aggressive measures. And another thing to consider is that when someone has some type of bacteria in the stomach, a lot of times it'll keep moving down the line and go into the small intestines too, and you can create all kinds of new bacterial overgrowth, called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And
Mm.
if there's a lot of bacteria there that waste can be alkaline too and could still be slowing the stool down. So maybe everything is good in the stomach since you're not experiencing a lot of bloating, right?
Right.
And you're not experiencing any reflux.
No, no, I've
Yeah.
never had reflux.
Yeah, so the stomach may be going okay, but there may be some type of overgrowth further down the line. It's like in the small intestine,
Okay.
where so D-limonene is not really going to help that very much.
Oh,
You may
okay.
need to use some other things. There's one that we use a lot that's called Intestable. Uh, it used to be called pyloricin, but they changed the name of it. I don't know if that's available in the UK, but it is available on Natural Reference. And I like to see people use, they might need to work up to like 3 per meal and go through 2 bottles of that. And
Okay.
then another thing that can be very effective is mastic gum or B propolis. And I'm sure that you have one of those over there in UK that you could find.
Yeah.
And these work kind of like a natural form of antibiotic in the gut. So when they go through the gut, they kind of bind to all that bacteria and then pull it out of the system.
Okay.
So most people need to do more than one of those things at a time. They also may, we have people sometimes use Pepto-Bismol, which is basically just bismuth. Uh, and we only like to see people do that for a week or two at a time. And that's something you'd want to do away from meals because it can alkalize the stomach just a little bit. Um, so, you can continue using HCl like you're doing. You say things are starting to move in the right direction. It sounds like the
Mhm.
magnesium and the ascorbic acid is all helping. All those things are
Okay.
helping. It's okay to slightly increase some of those things. You just don't want to, create the crazy explosive loose stool stuff again.
No.
So that can be some steps that you kind of take to see if it can kind of help that along, because we really aren't going to see the results you want until we can get the bowels moving regularly and the way that you want them to go. Now, have you checked your pHs at all lately?
Yes, I did send them through. My urine pH is generally around 5.75 and saliva 6.75.
Right. So that's good. I'm looking at your numbers, and your breath rate is 14. So that's a good breath rate. And your blood pressure is also in a good range at
Yeah,
120 over
that's improved
74.
because it was a little low, and I've been taking the concentrates,
Okay.
and it seems to be more in the normal range now. It just was slightly low sometimes, but that's improved.
And how much concentrates do you use now?
I'm using 30 drops a day.
Okay. You could increase that a little bit, and that is going to loosen up your stool a little bit because there's a lot of magnesium in there in a different form, and that can help
Okay.
push us a little less anabolic and send more water to the bowels. And so you could just kind of titrate that up a little bit each day. And
Okay.
as it starts to get loose, then take it back down, because it will make your stool really loose if you use too
Okay.
much. But that could help. Have you checked your fasting blood sugar at all?
Yes, I haven't done it for a little while, but it's been fine. I've got it written down here somewhere. It's always been fine. I'm not pre-diabetic or anything.
Okay, great. All right. So we don't have to probably be
No,
concerned
that's
about
been.
that.
I've got it here.
Okay. Do we have more things to pick up on here, Nissa, to kind of keep reading through these things, or are we doing pretty good on that?
Yeah, so you jumped into the supplements, and for anyone listening, I just wanted to mention she's taking 2 beet flow capsules with meals, 1 digestive enzyme, and 5 capsules of HCl. She says hers contain 480 milligrams of biotin HCl. So should she be up to 6 capsules for
You
the?
probably could go almost up to 6. The ones we use are 550,
Yeah,
and we're
slightly
using
more.
5, and that's about the number we like to see. Does your HCl have any other ingredients in it? Do you know?
No, it's just the HCl.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That's fine then.
And natural reference didn't have them, so the only thing I'm getting now from natural reference is the beet flow, because everything else I'm getting in the UK.
Okay. And yeah, so as long as, because sometimes HCl they'll just put stupid stuff in there that like alkalizes the HCl and like makes it worthless and all this stuff. So if there's not other things, then I'm not going to worry about which one you're using, as long as it's just HCl.
Yeah, it's only that.
And you're using 2 magnesium malate in the morning,
And morning and lunch.
so you're using 2 per meal, and they're 500 per meal. Okay, so that's a lot of magnesium to still be a little bit constipated. So we definitely know that something's going on, where either naturally you're leaning quite anabolic, and just the supplements that you're taking are helping your pHs look like you're a good human, but maybe there's some trouble there. But it is a lot. So it just kind of makes me think that there's probably something else slowing the stool down, like some type of bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine, or maybe a more aggressive one that's still in the stomach. So while you're doing those other things with the small intestine, it's okay to do some D-limonene too for a couple more weeks, and do a little bit more to kind of see if that helps things out as well.
Okay.
And I think that that's okay. Did we hit everything that you wanted to say there, Nissa?
With the ascorbic acid, the vitamin C, she's taking 1 capsule of 1,000 milligrams with breakfast and lunch, would it help her to take that away from food instead?
It kind of does a little bit. I try not to complicate it too much for people just because they're like, oh, I got to remember to take this and I got to take this. So if you can just, if you took your ascorbic acid before your meal, like maybe when you started to prepare it or something like that, just so that it got in there a little
Okay.
ahead of the game. If you could take it
Okay.
30 minutes to 60 minutes before the meal, that would be really optimal, but
Okay.
don't feel like you need to. And if you forget, just take it with the meal. It's not a huge deal, but that can help get into that intestinal tract and just kind of acidify things a little bit more and help them move along a little bit more. And if there's weeks where you're really plugged up and you want to increase that dose a little bit on that one, you probably could, because vitamin C in the form of ascorbic acid, if someone gets too much, it could cause a loose stool, but they're just going to pee out the rest of the excessive ascorbic
Okay.
acid. It's not going to cause a problem. So that can be a kind of a gentle way to give yourself a nudge on the weeks that you feel like you might need it. That and the concentrates are good ways to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any questions about that so far before we dive into food a little bit? Because it sounds like you have some good steps that you can try as far as supplements and such.
Yeah. Am I going, rather than write it all down, am I going to be able to read this back, watch this back again later on
We're
the?
hoping you just memorize it because it's that important. This is
Right.
going live into the Keto Decoded group right now.
So
And
I'll
so
be able
that
to
means
watch it back to write
you
down
can,
what I
as
need.
soon as we're done, you can watch it again if you
Okay.
didn't get enough of me. Most
Okay.
people usually get enough of me by the end of a podcast episode.
No, but that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so Nissa, let's get into food a little bit.
I can't see Nissa anymore.
I can't either. I wonder if she disappeared a little bit. Yeah, she definitely did. That's funny. Okay, so her internet probably got kicked off a little bit. So we'll just wait for her to come back in, and I
Okay.
need to just keep an eye so that I know when she's here. I might have to allow her back in a little bit. But she didn't say anything about leaving you here alone with me. That was not fair of her at all. Okay, so let's look at your food journals a little bit. Do you have the food journal on your hand there that you sent to us at all?
I do. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so why don't you? Uh, I'm looking at Saturday where you had for breakfast the 2 keto muffins.
Yes.
Okay, why don't you read what you ate that day, and then we'll just kind of talk about it a little bit.
Okay, so I make, because I don't like to spend a lot of time making breakfast and I don't really like cook breakfast very much. So I make keto muffins, which uses ground Brazil nuts rather than almond flour or coconut flour or anything else. And I've added in collagen protein powder. So that's quite high in fats and high in protein.
And what other ingredients are in the keto muffins?
It's eggs, collagen, ground Brazils, some stevia, cinnamon, mixed spice, and oil, olive oil.
Olive oil. Okay. All right. So then let's go to lunch.
Okay, lunch I had tuna, just a tin of tuna, some mayonnaise. I was hungry, so I had some cheddar cheese as well. So yeah, so that seemed to be okay. I mean, my calorie count was a bit high that day, but the other macros weren't too bad.
Okay.
And then dinner was just a beef stroganoff. So just make that with cream or with creme fraiche, cauliflower rice, cabbage and butter. And then I had some fat bombs, hazelnut chocolate fat bombs.
And when did you eat those?
I can't remember exactly, but I would probably have had them either all at lunchtime or 2 mid-morning and then 2 after, 1 mid-morning and 1 after lunch.
Okay. I think Nissa's coming back with us here. She's joining back in. Okay, so let's just go through and talk about some of this before we go on to the next day. And a lot of what you're doing is okay, and it's legitimate and it's legal. You're not breaking any rules really.
Right.
A lot of people. I need to wait. Oh, I just muted you. Okay, Nissa's back. Okay. We already finished everything. Okay, bye. Okay, Nissa, Sasha just read Saturday's meal. So we're going over food now.
Okay, and I did have stuff to say, so I don't know where you're at, but go ahead.
You had stuff to say about the meals?
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, I noticed, just taking a quick glance at them, let me open my notes, that when you multiply the carbs, fat, and protein, that there's a difference when it comes to calories and then the totals. And sometimes, like, so day one, it should be around, if you multiply all those up, it should be around 1,705 calories. But on your total calorie count, you have 1942. And the same thing happened with day three, where it should be 1,760 calories, and it should be 1,591. So I was just wondering, like, where's the difference?
I'm calculating them all manually. So for instance, I make the muffins once every 6 days, and I literally weigh everything and work out all of the macros and calories and everything and divide them. So, and that's, I haven't got on very well with the app.
Who knew that in the hot seat call we were going to be checking math? I did not know that.
Well, if there's a 200 calorie difference and those calories are coming from carbs or protein, that could be a big deal. If they're coming
Right.
from fat, it's not
How
really.
are you working them out, Nissa? Where do you get your figures from?
So at the end, you have your 20 carb, like for day one, I'm looking at, you have 20 carbs, 145 grams of fat, and 80 grams of protein. So when you
Yes.
buy out carbs and protein are each 4 calories per gram, so that's 400. And then you multiply out the 145 times 9, because each fat gram is 900 9
I'll see.
at the same time times 9. And so total, that's 1,705. But at the end of years, you have 1,942. So, I mean, you could really only be eating 1,705 and just coming up with a different number. But if you really are eating 1,942, you kind of need to know where that 200 plus calorie difference is, because if you're not adding in carbs that you should be, that could be a big deal.
Hmm.
Same could be true with protein. So it could just be a math error. And if it is, it's fine. But if you're getting in extra carbs that you're not realizing, or even sometimes extra protein, that can make a big difference.
Okay.
And I'm not seeing a lot of extra carbs. What ingredients are in beef stroganoff?
A little bit of onion, loads of mushrooms, beef, and then I put in either cream or creme fraiche and some mustard.
Okay. I know that onions can have some
I know.
carbs that are,
I do weigh the onions. I've cut back on the amount of onion. I just put a little, maybe half an onion in, and that's enough normally to serve 4 people.
okay.
So it's
And
only a small
if you're
amount.
tracking all these things like you are, I'm not going to be super concerned about your macros unless, beyond the math error, if Nissa sees anything else in the macros, you can jump in and talk about that. But I do want to talk about some of the other things with your food. Because right when
Okay.
Nissa got beamed back in, we started to talk about the fact that what you're doing here is fine. You're not breaking any rules. A lot of people will see results eating just like this on keto, but some people won't. And I'm one of those people. If I ate like this, I absolutely 100% would not lose weight, because there's some things in here that I just don't do well with. And also, I need to get a little more fat in some of these meals. So I just kind of want to talk about some of these points to see if there's things that you can test out. Because you
Okay.
said before that you don't like the fat on meat, like that you cut it off and that
I
you
cut
throw.
it all off. I buy very lean bacon, and I cut every bit of fat off.
Yeah. Now, is that because you hate me? Is that
I
why you
don't.
do that?
I just don't like fat on meat. I'm quite happy to eat butter and coconut oil. I
Right.
just don't. And just
Okay.
don't
So I want to
like.
tell you 2 things here. Because if it seems there's a very strong indications that your bile was not flowing well before. And that probably was the case for probably years or decades. That's usually how it is for
Yeah.
most people, is it just gets worse and worse and worse. And if that was the case, when you ate animal fats, you wouldn't have felt very good. And you could have naturally gravitated to the point where, I just don't like that. And your body's telling you, don't like that. I don't want you to like that because we don't feel good when you eat it. kind of
I'm
a
not
thing?
sure because I've always been fussy, but I've always eaten, for instance, I'm not eating bread anymore, but when I did eat bread, I would always eat a lot of butter on it and butter on baked potatoes. So I've
Right.
always eaten a lot of butter, but I've never liked fat on meat.
Well, this is what I just want you to test out. As your bile starts to improve and your body starts to emulsify fats better, just start paying attention that if you left a little bit extra on there and you ate it, does your taste start to change? Because you have to give the taste a chance to change. But as the body starts to access nutrients in those fats, it'll say, "Ooh, this is what I've been looking for. I want this. Give me more of this." And we see that our taste buds can change. So I'm not telling you to just change your taste buds, but leave yourself room to pay attention to that to see if it happens for you, because it could, because it sounds like bile has really started to improve lately. Okay, so that's one thing to think about. The other thing, let's just start with the keto muffins. Um, with the olive oil, I'd love for you to switch that out to either butter or coconut oil. And people are
Okay,
like, you don't bake with coconut oil, but I bake with coconut oil all the time. Do you do that, Nissa?
okay.
I do, yes.
Yeah, I bake with coconut oil all the time. Sometimes I might have to melt it down so that I can stir it into the things. But olive oil is
Yeah,
great to add to your food, especially for you if you're leaning more anabolic. Olive oil is great, but
but
when you heat it, it has the ability to change the fats into a toxic situation for your body. And remember that we want to remove toxic loads from the body because some of those will get stored in fat cells if the body's overwhelmed from, I can't get rid of this poop. There's too much toxins overwhelming me. So everything that comes in is now a problem. So if you can add olive oil to foods after you cook it, then you can get all those benefits from the olive oil without creating any toxicity. So that's one thing that's
okay,
great.
that's
The
easy.
next thing is if you also, when you're baking the keto muffins, if you just don't bake them at all, you could test that out, not having keto muffins. So let me tell you why. And I think this is the same way. We like some of these keto treats and stuff like that. But I can't lose weight when I use any of them, any of the keto baked things,
Really.
breads, anything like that. I just don't do well when I use those flours. And Nissa, are you the same
But
way?
it's not flour, it's Brazil nuts,
Right.
ground Brazil nuts. And also, I've halved the amount of stevia from what the recipe said.
Um, all nuts for me are out is if
Oh,
I want to have
really?
results.
Oh,
Yeah. I think Nissa
okay.
can do peanut butter, right?
I like peanut butter. Mm.
The problem I see is just eating muffins for breakfast would make me hungry and then I'd overeat the rest of the day. And you do say that you can't fast long because of hunger. So if you're not getting something with a decent amount of protein and fat in the morning, that can lead to more hunger.
Is that not enough? 22 grams of protein and 48 of fat. Is that not enough? I mean, those keto muffins do fill me up.
They do.
Mm.
For me personally, if I eat a baked, like sometimes I will eat stuff like this for breakfast, but definitely not when I'm trying to lose weight. It's just
Okay.
something more like eggs. If you can eat that, that would be a great keto breakfast.
I don't
Yeah, and
mind
keep
eggs occasionally. It's just not every day.
and keep this in mind too, Sasha. The thing is, you got to remember that when we look at this, you're actually doing great. Um, and like I said, a lot of people could lose weight doing this. It's when somebody isn't and they're stuck
I need to
that we
change
have to
something.
look at some of those things. And here's another
Sure.
thing: if you do these steps that we talked about and you clear some bacterial overgrowth in your small intestine out, and that was really the thing that was causing the constipation, and now you're pooping like a champion and waste is being removed from the body, and you just start to lose weight, you may be able to go back to everything that we yell at you about today and put it right
Okay.
back in and see amazing results. So we don't
Okay.
know which thing is causing the problem for you, but I can tell you like that this, if I try to do, nut butters and, muffins made out of nuts and things like that, I never see good results. And that's because I feel like I have created a slight food sensitivity to some of those foods, to where when I eat them, instead of nourishing my body, they're creating a burden in my body. And so now my body's dealing with all these problems instead of just going along smoothly and taking toxins out of fat cells.
Mm.
Instead, it's under a panic mode and putting things into fat cells. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it could just be something
Okay.
worth testing out, just trying to remove those.
Sure.
So you might have to figure out, okay, then what can I eat? How do you do with eggs? Is that something that you do okay with?
I eat. Yes, I'm just not over keen on them too often.
Right.
I don't have a problem eating them. I just wouldn't be my choice except for occasionally.
Right. And if
I
you can
like
do
I
some
love
of the,
egg mayonnaise, but I don't know what to eat those with.
you said you make egg mayonnaise?
I really like egg mayonnaise rather than cooked
Okay.
egg. I know boiled eggs mixed up with mayonnaise, but then that's sort
Oh,
of nice on crackers or bread, which I'm not really
right.
eating.
Right.
So
Right. And like Nissa was saying, if we can increase some of these fats in some places, it might give you more satiation to where it will be easier just to skip breakfast altogether, and you won't have to worry
okay.
about I have to find a breakfast food, so to speak. That's another thing too that I often shock people when I explain this to them, and it's just kind of funny that for breakfast we don't have to eat breakfast foods. We can just eat food. So if there's any food that you like, you can just eat anything for breakfast. It doesn't have to be a breakfast food, and that kind of blows some people's minds a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, okay, anything else on that, Nissa, that you want to say before we go on to lunch?
No.
Okay. When I look at lunch and I see tuna, and I don't know if this is just because I hate tuna, but tuna is a very lean meat. So, and since you don't like a lot of fat on the meat, there might be some ways that maybe you could find to have some fattier options. When you're using mayo, is it mayo you're making or mayo that you're buying?
I've never had much success in making it, so it's bought, but it's the
Yeah.
full fat one.
Right. Full fat is great, but a lot of times their fat is vegetable oils and a lot of, so just kind of look at your ingredients. I don't like mayo, so I don't shop for it. I don't know if there's good ones.
All
If
right.
there's one with olive oil instead of, vegetable oil,
There
that could
are
be beneficial.
avocado oil and olive oil, but you do still need to look at the ingredients because they'll still slip in canola oils and a lot of the big brands. So you have to look more for like Primal Kitchen kind of brands.
Okay. It's all different over here, of course. Different
Right.
brands, but
Yeah.
yes, I'll
Yeah.
look.
But you can just look at ingredients to figure that
Sure.
out, because that could be a big problem. You really want to get all the vegetable oils out, because, even though they're fats, they're they're all toxic, and they're creating toxicity in the body and creating more of a burden than helping a keto diet.
Okay.
Okay, so but that could be helpful if you had a better mayo, or maybe some other meat that like actual uh, tuna. Maybe I don't even know if that's a fattier fish, but maybe if you had salmon or something that had more fats in it, or just another type of meat that had more fats in it, because
Okay.
tuna can be very lean. So I tend to like just try to stay away from super lean things unless I can really fatten up the food. How are you doing with your fat bombs? It says hazelnut chocolate, and when I hear a name like that, it just that's a lot of things that aren't the actual fat. It brings a lot of ingredients in there that makes it delicious. They're so delicious, but um, I
Well,
like people when they're, what's that?
they have coconut oil, melted
Great.
down chocolate, a little bit of stevia, and ground hazelnuts.
Right. So again,
You're going to tell me not
if
to eat nuts again.
I don't know. If nuts are a problem for you, that you're doubling up the problems by putting it in different meals, So things like that. Sometimes it's hard to find new things when you went through all this effort to find things that you liked that were higher in fat, and now, well, I got to find other ones. But there's nuts are a thing that a very high percentage of people will have problems with, and not all nuts, but if when you're stuck, it's one of those first things I want people to remove, that and things like stevia and, the oils and things like we're talking about. Um,
Mm.
I think Nissa was one of the people that really saw the best results that I've seen when she's like, oh, I'm going to get rid of these things and all these artificial sweeteners and just see what happens. And holy cow, what happened?
Yeah, I definitely was so much less hungry when I got rid of the sweeteners, and all the cravings pretty much vanished. I did have to go through a period where I basically eliminated everything and the weight just fell off. So even if you're eating keto, there could be things that you're sensitive to and you don't even realize it. And once I eliminated things like dairy, and chocolate and basically everything I loved. I lost 15 pounds in, I think it was like 5 weeks, and I was already at a low weight. So there's things in there that could be keeping you
Mm,
inflamed and you don't even know it.
Right. And
okay.
that inflammation is, and that burden that the body's dealing with when it's dealing with something that it's not going well with, is enough to stop weight loss. And I also see this, the cabbage and butter. I don't know how many carbs was in that. I'm looking at it right now. It says it was 3. So that's probably not a big deal. Um, so that I'm looking at dinner now, and all these meals look okay. The fats in them are decent, but when someone's stalled, I really like to see them add some coconut oil to each meal if they can. And whether they have to, if they have to do it in a fat bomb, that's fine. But I want them to start reducing the other ingredients in those fat bombs and increasing the amount of coconut oil. And the people that can just like I don't even make fat bombs anymore. I just take a spoonful of coconut oil and I eat it. I don't know if Nissa, I think Nissa's not that advanced. She's not down with that. And a lot of people are not down with that. But the clients that have been able to work themselves up to do that, uh, it makes everything easier because, oh, I don't have to make this other thing and all this stuff. If I run out of fat bombs or I'm going to try this chocolatey goodness thing. So it's a turbo boost when you can put most of the fat bomb, have it be coconut oil or butter or butter. So you can still flavor it,
Okay.
but just start reducing the amount of those other ingredients you're putting in there.
What else? But if you, what else do you put in it to make a fat bomb then? If you don't have the nuts,
Well,
no,
that's,
ground whatever.
yeah, well, dark chocolate, a little bit of that can be okay for some
Okay.
people. Um,
And
but
you can add some flavorings. Like on my website, I have the minty melts, which is just dark chocolate, coconut oil, and then some peppermint extract. And then you
Yeah,
can
I've
do different
tried
flavors.
those.
yeah. So find things like that you're like, oh, okay, that's good. And then reduce the amount of good that it is. I want it to be less delicious, is what I'm looking for that to be. And then the less delicious it is, the more effective it's going to be. And then
Okay.
you get to see the results that you want. And then as you get the results, then you can say, okay, I'm going to test out adding some more deliciousness back into things and see if I can stay at this level. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And that can really help you pinpoint what things are causing trouble and what you really can get away with. Because we're talking about, 10, 15 different things today that you could adjust. And
Yeah.
certainly not all the things that we're saying are causing a problem to your body. I would think that that would be a long shot for it to be the case. But the trick is we don't get to know. So what you really want to do is do everything you can to get the results that you want and then start adding things back in to see what can I get away with so that you can do those things more long. Hold all my calls.
I've got sorry, let me stop that. Sorry. There you go.
That's okay.
Also, with
Um,
the less deliciousness part, your body does get used to it. Your taste buds will start to change, and stuff that didn't taste delicious will start to taste good to you the more you eat it.
I don't have as many cravings as I used to have, certainly.
right.
I
Well,
used to be
your
a
blood pressure,
chocoholic.
right. Well, your blood pressure has come up into a human range, and that's going to help that a whole lot. So
Right.
you have done some work that is substantial and fantastic, and it's going to make these tweaks a lot easier. If you were trying to do all these things that we were talking about when you first started and you were having all these chocolate cravings and all these things, you'd be like, forget it, kid. There's no way that's happening. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
But you set yourself up to make those things a lot easier and a lot more sustainable now.
Okay. Right.
Also, with the fat bombs, the more that you can have those with meals or with food, the
Yeah.
better. It's okay to have it on a snack if you really got to do that, but I really would prefer to
Yeah.
see it with a meal while all that digestive action is going. It just makes it easier for the body to process those fats and utilize them. You want the
Yeah.
body to be able to utilize them.
Mostly I have them after lunch or
Okay.
after dinner, but I do
Yeah.
occasionally have
Yeah, so that'd be
numbers
a
and stuff.
way to kind of take some of these meals that are they're not quite fat enough and just boost them enough to where the a higher percentage of that meal is fat. You know what I'm saying?
Does it matter if I go over on the proteins? Because sometimes it goes up to 100 grams or so of
It
protein.
depends. We kind of don't know, and that's certainly something to watch. And how often do you think that that's an important factor for a person, Nissa?
I think when you have a lot of weight to lose, it's not that important. I think the closer that you get to your goal, it can come into play. Or if you know that you're very insulin resistant, since those can turn into sugars in the body for some people. So, it really depends. It wouldn't be the first thing I would change.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're staying in ketosis pretty consistently, it looks like, from your testing numbers. And
It's
so when
yes,
that
it's not as high as it was because the first time I took it and I got into ketosis, I was at 1.4, and nowadays it's mostly about 0.9.
okay, well, that's good. At 1.4 is so 1.4 is still in ketosis. That's
Yeah, but
great.
zero point 0.9 is ketosis because it's anything over zero point 0.5, but it's not very deeply into ketosis, is it?
Well, it's, I don't really like to view it that way. I don't like to view it as the higher that number, the more weight you lose. That's not really how the body works. As
Okay.
long as you're in a state of ketosis that the body is burning fat, then it's enough to see results if enough other things are going correctly. My
Okay.
point was that it doesn't seem like you're having a problem getting into ketosis. So I feel like when protein is going a little high, it's probably not the problem. Just because if it were the problem, it would probably be knocking you out of ketosis.
Right.
But I could be wrong. It could be a problem. It's worth watching and testing out what happens when you reduce it and swap some of that protein. If you took tuna away and you had, a ribeye or, something, a ground, can you do ground beef?
Is that, do you mean minced, what we call minced beef? Is that what you mean? Yeah,
Probably. Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yes, we have that.
If you can get one, if you go to the butcher and you're like, what's your highest percentage of fat that you have that he can give you? And it's probably only going to be 20% fat or something like that. I use one that is 45%
Yeah.
fat,
I
but you
did
have to
actually
order it.
look in the supermarket last week, and most of the mince was 5%, and some was 10 and 12%, and that was the highest that they had in the supermarket.
Right. That's not very impressive. But still, ground beef can usually be a little more fattier than tuna would be.
Yeah.
So if you do okay with that, you can start switching that out. And then when you're eating meat that is higher in fat, that's also lowering the amount of protein that's coming in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you still get to
Okay.
eat meat or something, and you're upping your fat without any extra effort.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, Nissa, do you see anything else that we need to talk about? We've talked a lot. I think we thought this was going to be quick and easy to do, but I guess I blabbed.
The only thing is, so when it comes to fasting, she said she's fasting between 13 and 14 hours most days, sometimes even up to 15 or 16 hours, but she can't fast any longer because she gets hungry. How much to do with a potential bacterial overgrowth do you think that getting hungry has to do with it?
Well, if that is creating a burden in the body, then any kind of burden creates a need for resources. Everything that's a burden, the body has to use resources to deal with it. So if the body's using a lot of resources to deal with this emergency that it's viewing as an emergency to go on, then that could contribute to it. But that's a kind of a roundabout way to look at it. Uh, I would think that it would more about some of the choices. Like when I'm looking at seed crackers that are homemade, I view seeds as the same as nuts. And so now I'm just emptying out your whole pantry
No
now,
nuts, no
basically.
seeds.
Uh, roast beef, I'm looking at lean roast beef. I'm like, well, I want some fatty roast beef. Give me
Oh,
something. Uh, so if you can switch it up. And so that's what made me jump out at the fact that maybe nuts and seeds are giving a problem, because I'm seeing a lot of nuts and seeds on here. And I think it's worth, um, checking those things out. When you're thickening things with xanthan gum, I would certainly get rid of any kind of gums, because those are cause inflammation for a lot of people. Not all people,
mm.
but anything with
Is
xanthan
arrowroot
gum.
better?
Uh, as far as I know, it is.
In
But I
small
think that can be a
quantities,
little.
because it does have carbs in it, so you
Right.
just need smaller quantities.
Yeah.
Right.
So no to xanthan gum then. Okay.
I would, until you see that I'm doing great, everything's good. Now I'll test out putting it back in and see how I do. Just because it can be problematic for a lot of people, and just
Okay.
all those gums that they put in, like all of the milks and things like that. All of those can be really problematic for a lot of people.
Okay. Is the exercise okay?
Right?
So she said that she's doing 5 minutes brisk walk and then 25 to 30 minutes of very slow jogging, followed up by a little bit more brisk walking 3 days a week. And then she is doing her mini trampoline rebounder 20 minutes, it looks like 4 days a week.
I love the mini rebounder thing. That's really great. And the exercise is okay. But when you get to where you're fasting better, um, I would rather see you just walk and not show
Okay.
off about it. I would like it to be easy. You should be able to carry on a conversation the whole time effortlessly without breathing too hard and all that kind of stuff. And if you do that fasting, you're going to see more fat loss than all this other working out that you're doing, because
But is
we
it
don't
partly
know.
habit with the not being able to fast? I mean, it could just be I'm used to eating and I need to retrain myself. Is it as simple as that?
Sometimes it is. Sometimes if you get a little bit hungry in the morning when you're just starting to do this, if you really are fat adapted and you're in ketosis, sometimes it's just a matter of taking, put a little salt on your finger and put it on your tongue and see how that makes you feel. Sometimes it's just your body saying, "Hey, I'm kind of a little low on minerals," and if you put a little salt in there, it's like, "Oh, that's kind of what I was looking for. I feel fine now," and you'll be fine till lunch. That's the case for some people. So you can test that
Okay.
out and see how you do. Um, but the fact that you're getting hungry, you don't want to be miserable. Your body's saying, "Look, it's not working out." When you're really in a fat adapted and things are going well, it's more like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot to eat."
I've
That's what
never
Sometimes
you're looking
forgotten
for.
to eat.
Yeah.
sometimes with fasting it is okay to get hungry. You just never want to get ravenous because sometimes hunger can come in waves. You might get a little hungry, maybe you could eat, but if you do something to keep yourself busy and that hunger goes away, it's not really that your body needed food. It's maybe just the routine that your body's in. So if you can do something to keep yourself busy for 20 to 30 minutes and it goes away, then it might help you fast longer. But if you notice yourself like getting weak or overly hungry, that's when you don't want to stress your body out and that's when you'll want to eat something.
Yeah. Or feeling sick. You really want to eat something if you start feeling sick.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot for you to test out. And, do you want to test it all out at once? You have to figure that out. I like to see people really remove all the possible bad things if they can fit it into their life.
I
And
might wait
just
till after Christmas.
that's probably, that might be a good idea.
It's a bit
And then,
difficult at Christmas to eliminate everything.
right. But I like to see people get to where they can get the results and then start adding things back in to see what they can get away
Sure,
with. If you just
sure,
start
right.
removing one thing at a time, you might have two or three things that are creating problems and you never figure out any of them. What I'm saying? If you just like, I'm going to remove seeds this week, and then next week I'm going to put those back in and I'm going to remove nuts. Well, if both of those things are giving a problem, you don't really get to find out what it was.
So just remove everything and then
Yeah. Just
gradually put them back.
remove everything but ice and coconut oil. That's it. No, yeah,
And
you can't
fatty
do that.
meat.
Yeah, yeah, and a big chunk of fatty meat. Yeah, so you have to figure out what works for you. You can't, be gagging as you're eating down a ribeye if that makes you gag. That's not going to work for you. You have to find what works for you. And again,
Sure.
you may find later if you start pooping like a champion that all these things are fine, because all these things are, could be legal for some people, but while you're stalled, you want to try and test out removing some things.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
I'm excited to hear how things go.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Okay, tell everybody in the UK we said hi.
Okay, well, thanks a lot and have a good Christmas.
All right, you too. Take care, everybody. Bye bye,
Okay,
Nissa.
thank you.
So that was it. That was pretty fun. I really liked all the input from Sasha, and it seemed like she was willing to take some of the suggestions that we made, and we're going to see how she does. We'll see in the group what kind of results come from that. But some of them seemed like slam dunk things that she could do to get much better results.
And I think a lot of it is stuff that you don't hear on your typical everyday keto podcast because, they're more about the eat more fat, eat less carbs. Well, not all of them are about eat more fat, but they're about eat less carbs and see how you do. But I think all of the digestion information is important, and I think it could definitely help her.
Yeah, and what's fun is that a lot of this stuff we wouldn't usually talk about on an episode, but when you dig into somebody's specifics, you see things that they need to, kind of look into, and it makes us talk about things that will probably help other people as well. So that's kind of fun. We should do this some more.
Yeah, and just so those who aren't a part of our group know, these are the kinds of things that we do talk about in our group, and these are the issues that we help people with so that they can finally get good results. Speaking of groups, I also have my private Eating Fat is the New Skinny group, which is a free group, and anyone listening to the podcast can join. Every week, I am going live on Mondays for a dose of Monday morning motivation, where I give pep talks and tips to help you stay on track, which is especially important right now over the holidays because it's so easy to get caught up in all
Yeah.
of the hustle and bustle. So, if you want to listen in on a Monday morning motivation chat, you can go to eatingfatisthenewskinny.com/group and join.
Great. And where do people go to sign up early for the challenge? Because we're going to have a good time for that in January.
Yes, the challenge is held in our private group, and to get in on that, they can go to eatingfatisthenewskinny.com/challenge gift. They will be able to purchase a spot for themselves and a half price gift for a friend.
Well, happy holidays to your friend. That was a pretty good prize you just got them. That's going to be fun.
Yes, but hurry up because that special offer is going away this week.
Okay. All right. We will see you guys next week, right?
Yes.
Okay. Bye bye now.
Whether you're brand new to keto or just looking to move past roadblocks, join us for our next Troubleshooting Keto Master Workshop. Go to chatthefat.com/workshop to find upcoming dates and register for this totally free event. You just might find your missing piece of the puzzle. Until then, we'll see you next week on Chat the Fat.